Hey, it's your boy Easy, and on today's episode of Easy Opens, we're going to be taking a look at the NECA Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mirage Comics Renet figure. Oh my goodness, she's already gone. Jeez, you can't trust a Time Lord with a Time Scepter if they've got one. They're going to use it. So, I guess, good thing I've got Savanti's right here because I did his review before I did hers. So let me go ahead and use this to go back in time where she was actually in her plastic prison. So let's go. Alright, here is NECA's Mirage Comics Renet. Renet first appeared in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mirage Comics Volume 1, Issue 8 from July 1986. She was created by Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird, and Dave Sim, who is the creator of Cerberus. She is a human who did a brief stint as a cockroach and then as a time mistress and can manipulate space and time. She was also a former apprentice of Lord Simultaneous. So the box art is fantastic. NECA always does a great job with these comic boxes. So, they're awesome. But let's go ahead and get this figure free from their plastic prison and see what we think about Renet. Fresh out the box, Renet is fantastic. NECA just does a great job. They're a really good toy company and they do really good figures. And Renet is another excellent addition to this line of Mirage Comics action figures. And I am very happy with this figure, especially the cloth bendy cape. It's one of those things you don't think about or you don't really think you might need until you get one and you're like, oh, this is really cool. And it's a lot of fun and adds a ton of posability to the character that just kind of makes the figure come alive on a level that you really just don't think about until you have it. And then you're like, oh, wow, I wish every action figure came with one of these. Now, I will say that it being a little loose on the neck is a little weird, and it doesn't necessarily look as cohesive as I would like for it to have. I might have preferred it to somehow have been underneath her armor so that it could just, blend in a little bit easier with the rest of the sculpt, but I don't know off the top of my head necessarily if that is comic accurate, so they might have just done this to still be comic accurate, but just, you realize that you're gonna have to do some bending and posing of it, which you can do, especially up at the collar too. I mean, it's all bendable, so you can adjust it and get it the way you want it, but that just would have been something that would have been cool that I'm noticing right off the bat. But other than that, the sculpt is fantastic. She looks a lot like she did in the comics, just with a really ridiculous outfit that I absolutely love. And she just looks really neat, like one of the 80s bodacious babes that they were putting in these books back then. And I just think NECA did a great job bringing this figure to life. There is some texture to her outfit, so where some of the I don't know what you would call this. It's escaping me right now. But kind of like the same thing that Captain America has on his suit that looks like little rivets or flakes or something. I don't know how to describe it. It's not coming to me right now as I'm doing this. But they are there, and they do have some texture. They create some texture to the actual suit, as well as all the clocks, which is neat. And she looks absolutely ridiculous, which is my most favorite thing about Renet, besides her being a little aloof in the books. But as far as her look, she just looks just wild, and I absolutely love it. And I think NECA did a great job. She's not scrawny. She's not, like some Marvel Legends female action figures are just impossibly thin and just I don't know, they're not fun to pose, and it's just, I don't know, I'm just not the biggest fan of those types of female action figures. But NECA, I think, does a great job with their female action figures, and she is another great example of that. And then the paint is, great. There's not a terrible amount of it because a good part of her body is exposed, so it's just skin, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But given that she is the comic style, she has some lines here and there that add to the depth of the sculpt and give it some dimension. Now, I will say that they do have a different version of this figure that is based off of her cover appearance, where she's in blue instead of brown. And I chose to go with the brown because I believe she matched Savanti Romero a lot better than the blue version, and also because I believe this version came out first, and I didn't know they were going to do a blue version. Even if I knew, I'm still not 100% that I would have gone that route. But nevertheless, I'm very happy with what we've got here with this brown version. Renet comes with 6 interchangeable hands, 2 interchangeable heads, a neck piece that is her head covering pulled down, a dagger, the time scepter, a scroll, and the screaming head of Lord Simultaneous, which is fantastic.
All right, so now let's take a look at the articulation you're going to get out of Renet. So, well, let's take her head off. Well, her hat off. I guess that's a hat. Starting at the head, you have 360 at the neck. She can look up a decent amount. She can look down really well. You get side to side, all kinds of movement in the neck, which is great. She has a wired cape, which is fantastic. So you get all kinds of movement and articulation there with the cloth goods and the bendy wire in there. Just really awesome. And aesthetically, it bothers me sometimes, but overall, the playability and the movement in it, I love it. It's great. So all kinds of movement there. In the shoulders, her shoulder pads are going to impede the 360 rotation that is available there on the figure, but that's gonna get in the way. You got up and down on the arms as well. You got 360 at the bicep. You got double jointed elbows. You have a hinged wrist that is also, you can switch out the hands, so there's room for all kinds of wiggle room there in the wrists. In the chest area, you do have 360 rotation at the chest as well as back and forth, side to side, all that wiggle room there. And then moving to the legs, she's got a good range of motion in both legs. She's got thigh swivel, double jointed knees. She has, you'd think she'd have a boot cut, but she does not have a boot cut. But she does have an ankle rocker, which is cool because Savanti Romero did not have an ankle rocker. And I do believe that is all the articulation you're going to get out of, well, whatever, Renet.
Now, according to Turtlepedia, her height is approximately 6 foot tall, and she weighs approximately 117 pounds. This figure stands at just over 6 inches tall and weighs about 2.5 ounces. So now let's see how she compares to some other figures you might have in your collection. Here she is with the NECA 1987 animated series Disguised Donatello and the NECA 1987 animated series SDCC 2018 exclusive Donatello. Here she is with the NECA Return to New York Leonardo and Michelangelo. Here she is with the NECA knockoff colored bandanas Mikey and Raph. Here she is with the Super 7 Raphael and Donatello. Here she is with the NECA Mirage Comics Casey Jones and the 1987 animated series Casey Jones. Here she is with the NECA 1987 animated series April O'Neil 2.0 and the Shredder. Here she is with SH Figuarts Kamen Rider Thouser and Hasbro's G.I. Joe Classified's Baroness. Here she is with Hasbro's Marvel Legends Wolverine and Jada Toys Fei Long. Here she is with Mattel's Masterverse Skeletor and Figma's Pokemon Gloria. Here she is with Jakks Pacific's Fortnite Agent Peely and Storm Collectibles Sub-Zero. And here she is with Mirage Comics' Savanti Romero. So Renet is one of those characters in the TMNT books that I absolutely love. She shows up and you have no idea what's going to happen, how you're going to get back, how long you're going to be there, who else is going to be involved. So many questions, and she just is a wild card and makes the books a lot of fun and brings a lot of life to them. She kind of reminds me of Q from Star Trek Next Generation, where like when the Q show up, you have no idea what the episode is going to be. It can go anywhere, literally anywhere. That's kind of the same energy that Renet brings to the books, although it's mostly just about time and not about like warping reality and stuff. But nevertheless, she's an awesome character, and NECA has done an awesome job. One thing I gotta commend them on is that their female bodies have been leaps and bounds better than the Marvel Legends bodies. I love Marvel Legends, but their female characters are a little too thin. And maybe it's not even just that they're too thin. Maybe it's just the plastic they're using. It warps very easily, especially in the legs, and it just doesn't look great. And NECA's female bodies that they've been using for their figures are a little bit thicker, which I'm all about, and they tend to just hold their shape a lot better and just still look amazing, opposed to Marvel Legends that kind of have like some bow-leggedness going on, which there's nothing really wrong with that. It's just that it just looks weird from an action figure perspective. But nevertheless, Renet looks and feels fantastic. I had a ton of fun posing her and taking photos with her, and she goes so well with pretty much any incarnation of the Turtles. She's also one of those characters whose design can kind of seem to work with any of the variety of Turtle action figures that you have. That she's got this like sort of, it's not necessarily a hybrid look because she looks a little too serious for the animated series line of like humanoid figures, but I think she can work with the Turtles from the animated series line pretty well, you know, or at the very least you could fudge it. But she definitely works extremely well with the Mirage Comics line because that's what she was designed to go with, because that's what she's based off of. And she does that extremely well. She also goes extremely well with Savanti Romero. Like, they just look like a pair almost. And I love seeing the two of them together. And I'm really glad that I got the brown version as opposed to the blue version, even though I love the blue version. But the fact that she goes so well with Savanti's color scheme, with the brown color scheme that she's got here, that's just fantastic. And I'm super glad that they kind of like, you know, put those two characters together because they often do show up together. So that's really rad. Another thing that's really rad is her soft goods bendy cape. I've had so much fun posing this cape with her. It added it gave a lot of extra vitality to the time I spent with Renet, posing her and taking pictures and getting her, you know, in the shots that I wanted. And I don't know, I'm just very taken with this bendy soft goods cape. And I'm really upset now because it's kind of spoiled me looking at some of my other figures that have plastic capes, and I'm like, if only you had a bendy soft goods cape, you would be at least 10 times better. But you don't. You got a plastic cape, so sorry about your luck. That sucks. But that aside, the figure itself is great. She looks like she just popped off the page and onto the shelf. You can't ask for much more than that. She works with pretty much every incarnation of the Turtles that you could probably have in your collection, and she is a ton of fun to play with. She comes with a lot of great accessories. The one thing that I will say though is that unfortunately, while I was messing around with mine, the right shoulder pad popped off, and that kind of bummed me out. And I thought I could just stick it back in, like maybe it was designed to do that, like maybe if you gave it a little bit of a wiggle, it would pop it out, but you could pop it back in. But no, I think the glue came undone on it or something. It's not the end of the world. I could easily just put some glue on it and put it back and it'll probably be fine. But yeah, it's just kind of disappointing because you never want a figure to break, especially an adult collectible figure that you've spent decent money on. It's just kind of disappointing, but you know, it's one of those things that happens. But that aside, I don't have any real negative things about this figure. She looks fantastic. She poses great. And the bendy cape is a ton of fun to play with. So if you are collecting any of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle lines from NECA and you just want to have more characters that are in this lore, I mean, Renet is one of the best that you can get. If you're collecting the comics line and you just need more protagonists for that line, Renet totally fits that bill. If you're a fan of time bending, time travelers, just time lords, whatever you want to call them, Renet can totally fit in there. Or if you just happen to have a shelf dedicated to bodacious comic book babes from the 1980s, then Renet will not disappoint. All right, well, that's going to do it for me today. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, hit the like button. If you want to see more from me, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments which Renee do you prefer? Do you prefer the brown suit one, or do you prefer the blue suit, Renee? Let me know. And yeah, until then, else time.